Two friends, John and Mark, were hiking through a dense forest, soaking in the sights and sounds of nature. They laughed, traded stories, and enjoyed the fresh wilderness air. During their trek, they stumbled upon a massive, deep hole hidden among the thick undergrowth. Curious, John leaned over and said, "Wow, that looks incredibly deep." Mark nodded. "Let's toss in a few pebbles and see how deep it is. We'll hear them hit the bottom." They gathered some small stones and threw them in, waiting for the sound. But nothing. Not a single echo. "Now that's deep," John said. Amazed. "I know," replied Mark. "Let's try something bigger. Maybe those large rocks over there." They each lifted a football-sized rock, strained to heave it into the hole, and listened again. Still, silence. Puzzled, John scanned the area and spotted something in the brush. "Hey, there's a railroad tie over here. Help me drag it over. If we throw this in, it has to make a sound." Together, they hauled the heavy beam to the edge and shoved it into the abyss. Moments passed. Still no sound. As they stood there, bewildered, a goat suddenly burst from the forest, sprinting full speed toward them. Before they could react, it leapt straight into the hole and vanished. John and Mark froze, staring in disbelief. A few moments later, a farmer appeared from the woods, looking worried. "Hey, you boys seen my goat around here?" John, still stunned, said, "Yeah. Craziest thing we've ever seen. It came running like it was being chased by the devil himself and jumped right into that hole." The farmer frowned, shaking his head. "Nah, that couldn't have been my goat." He paused, scratching his chin. "You see, my goat was chained to a railroad tie." A nervous-looking man stepped into a rough, rowdy biker bar, his eyes darting around as conversations halted, and a dozen leather-clad bikers turned to stare. Mustering his courage, he called out, "Excuse me, but does anyone here own that big rottweiler tied up outside?" A massive, tattooed biker slowly stood, glaring. "Yeah, that's my dog. What about it?" The man swallowed hard. "Well, I'm really sorry, but I think my chihuahua just killed him." The biker's eyes went wide. "What the hell are you talking about? How could your tiny chihuahua kill my rottweiler?" The man winced and said quietly, "Well, he got stuck in your dog's throat." A man was driving home late at night after a lively party when flashing lights suddenly appeared behind him. He sighed, pulled over, and watched in his rearview mirror as a police officer approached. As the officer reached the driver's window, his eyes immediately caught something unusual. A large collection of knives scattered across the back seat. With a firm, suspicious tone, the officer asked, "Sir, is there a legitimate reason you've got all those knives in your car?" The man smiled nervously but replied confidently, "Absolutely, officer. I'm a professional juggler." The officer raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Sensing the doubt, the man offered, "If you'd like, I can show you. Right here. Right now." The officer stepped back warily. "All right," he said, "but this better be good." Moments later, the man stood beside his car, flinging knives into the air with dazzling precision, spinning, catching, and tossing them again in a hypnotic rhythm under the streetlights. Just then, a car with two elderly men drove past. They slowed down, watching the roadside spectacle in disbelief. One of them shook his head and said, "I'm sure glad I gave up drinking." The other nodded solemnly. "You're telling me these sobriety tests are getting more ridiculous every day." An elderly man was about to celebrate his 80th birthday, and his friends wanted to surprise him with something special. Since he'd been a widower for many years, they decided, after a few mischievous laughs, to hire an escort to visit him that evening and make his night unforgettable. Later that night, as the old man was getting ready for bed, his doorbell rang. Curious, he shuffled to the door and opened it, only to find a stunning young woman standing there in a revealing outfit. With a sultry smile, she said, "Happy birthday." Startled, the old man blinked and replied politely, "Well, thank you, young lady. How can I help you?" She smiled wider and said, "Your friend sent me as a gift. I'm here to give you super sex." The old man paused, thought for a long moment, then said, I think I'll just take the soup."